Going to introduce our next speaker. I don't want to, overrate this in or anything, but possibly the best talk ever at Scale. I'm about to introduce to you Keila Banks, and she's going to do a speech on being free to be a kid. Keila Banks is my daughter. The fifth grade, showing you how she does web development, and she's going to talk about how she does everything open source. Well, with some closed source, but let's give her a big hand.
Hi, my name is Keila Banks. I'm 11 years old and I'm in the 5th grade. I will be talking to you about how I use open source to do whatever I want. I started using computers when I was 3 years old because I grew up in a house with Mac, Linux, Windows, OpenSUSE, and a little bit of Ubuntu. When I was 3 years old, I would look on the back of cereal boxes and they would tell you that if you went to a website, you could play games on there. So when I was 3 to 4 years old, I would go to that website and I would play all kinds of games. And then when I turned 5, I would go in my mom's room and I would watch her write on her blog since she's a teacher. And then when I saw her writing on her blog, I asked if she could give me my blog. And so that's when I asked for my blog. And on 2007, that's when I opened my blog about Bratz and Barbie dolls. And I would write every night. I would tell her what I wanted on my blog, and she would write it on the blog. And it kept on going until 2011 when I went to 3rd grade, and I stopped writing on it because I was really busy. And when I returned really busy, I had my class, and we would go to the computer lab a lot, and so that's what made me get into programming. Then, when I went to my dad's back office, which used to be a garage, but they turned it into a computer room, I would go there every night when he was there, and then he would fix computers and install operating systems on there. And I would go back there while he was doing that, and I would sometimes help him. And so while I was there, he was making a website for his client, and it's called Giuseppe's, and she had a restaurant in Victorville, California. And when I saw his website, I thought it was really, really, really cool. And so I asked him if he could make me my own, like I asked my mom if she could make me my own blog. And so that's when I asked him how to make one, and he wasn't going to explain all of HTML right there. So he gave me a whole lot of books to understand how I would write it. And when I read in the books, I didn't really understand it because it wasn't meant for a 3rd grader. So I went on Google and I searched how to make a website, and I had to go through like 10 pages on until I found the right website. So when I went to the website, it told me how to do everything from scratch, and I was really, really happy that I finally learned how to do HTML. So that's when I started programming websites, and then I kept making them, but they didn't turn out well, and they didn't really go into the internet. And so that's what made me lose interest until I went to 3rd grade later. When we would keep going to the computer lab, then they would want to research on science and animals, and that's when that got me an idea to make a website about animals. And so that's when I coded my own website in HTML about animals. And then my dad made our personal server with Apache, and we put it on that server. And then every day when we went to the computer lab, I would tell my friends to go to the website, and then they would be surprised at how I could make a website since I was only 8 or 9 years old. And then sometimes they would look up how to make a website and they couldn't understand it just like I did. And then my teacher, she gave me extra credit on doing that because she had never seen a third grader who could make a website all on her own. And then when I got to 4th grade, our server was down, and so he took the server we had made in Apache down, and we didn't have that website anymore. And so that kind of got me out of interest, and then that would make me go through games like Club Penguin, Who's World, and Pixie Hollow, and I would play them all day and get memberships and stuff like that, and I'd return to being a normal 5th grader, and didn't do the normal things I did anymore. And then once I kept playing the games, I got bored of them. And so that's when I kept going back to my back office again with my dad, and he would help me fix computers, and then that's when I learned how to take apart a computer from scratch and put it back together and install an operating system on it. And then he was making another website for his clients, but we don't remember what the name of it was. And that made me get interested into computers again and programming, but this time I wanted my websites to be better. So instead of just running HTML, I learned a little bit of JavaScript and some PHP and some CSS, and then that's what made me get back into focus. And then it took a long time, but on my birthday, which was January 10th, I purchased my first domain name, and I published my website on there. And then between when I got my website, I would do different things, like I would edit programs and images in GIMP, or make video in Windows Movie Maker. And when I was a cheerleader, when we were making our own shirts for competition, I made my own logo in GIMP, and it was the best going on there. So it was me doing a cheerleading move, and you could see people through my leg. And then after that, my dad, he would watch these videos with me called How to Learn JavaScript, and it was really, really good. It was really good tutorials. But when I was watching the tutorials, I noticed that he wasn't using Notepad or any basic program that you use to make a website. And then I looked on the screen, and the name of the program was Microsoft Web Matrix. And so that's what made me install Microsoft Web Matrix, and I would code my website in all kinds of things. And I would use GIMP to, when I was running for campaign school office, that's what I made, that poster in GIMP all by myself. And then even though I didn't win, it still turned out really good. And then this time I wrote, And then I would publish. In my 5th grade class, I'm the editor of the classroom newspaper, and I made this in Microsoft Publisher. And I do it every Friday, and it's really easy to edit. And every day people are like, how do you do that? How do you do that? And then I tell them that it's much more complicated than you think it is. And then that's why I publish it every Friday, because I'm really proud of the things I do.
Me too.
And then this is how my website looks. When I first published it, it wasn't that good because I made it in like one day, but I haven't put all my effort into it, but I'm about to update it soon. And then after I made my website, I started playing those games again, and then when I looked at the games, I noticed that I wanted to make my own game, and so that's what made me ask my dad if he knew how to make a game. And then first he told me that most games are made in Flash, but Flash it costs money and it's going out of date, so he told me about HTML5, which you can make games in it. And right now I'm learning HTML5 because I really want to make games. And other than HTML5, I'm using a program called Stencil, and it helps you make 2D games like that. So I'm using HTML5 and GIMP and Stencil and all kinds of open source projects, because with open source you can do anything that you want to, because it helps you, and you can make open source programs yourself. And while I'm still young, you don't have to be as young as me to use open source, but you can still use open source software to do whatever you dream of. And that's the end of my presentation.
Questions for Keila? Any questions? Anybody raise their hands?
One. Go ahead.
Oh, it's me. How much PHP do you know?
What?
PHP.
Well, I don't know a whole lot, but lately I've been trying to use PHP to make databases.
You're saying you're coding by the HTML by hand versus some kind of content management Drupal or?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Because it by hand. And my
Do you find that
website,
difficult?
sometimes it's difficult, but after I learn it, it's not difficult at all.
I'm a fifth grade teacher. I have fifth grade students. Okay. And what would you suggest as a fifth grader? What would you suggest to interest or get other students interested in learning on open source and that kind of thing?
Well, my 5th grade teacher, she likes to go way outside the box, and she likes to do a whole lot of projects. And usually during those projects, I like to go outside the box, and I like to make the posters and GIMP. And sometimes I like to put educational stuff on my website. And so I think if you coded a website and put games in there, I think that would make them interested in learning.
On your website, the look of it, did you kind of find another website that you like the look of, and then that's what you copied, or did you just kind of put it together over time, or?
I just kind of thought of it in my head.
Oh, okay.
Well, I have a lot of friends, but none of them really like know as much as me because when I was running for office, I told everyone about what I did, and then they would call me computer girl.
That's a good
thing. Then they were like, "Could you teach me how to make a website?" And then I would tell them it's not as easy as you think it is. But I still have friends that use computers, but they don't do as much things like me.
As a kind of follow-up, have your teachers or noticed that interest that you have in trying to kind of exploit it or see how they can use you to inspire your students or to do anything with it at your school?
Yes, last Friday I went on my field trip,
Okay.
and my teacher that was like the first time she actually talked to my dad. And she assumed, since I knew that much about computers, she asked him on next Friday if he could talk to my class about computers. He said yes.
This is really great work and it's very inspiring. And I have a two-part question. First is, what are some of the challenges you found trying to teach this to yourself? And then second is, what do you wish had been out there to make it easier for you to learn?
Well, I think my hardest thing would be learning PHP. Sometimes when I was reading the book, I was slamming on the ground. I was so mad. And to this day, I'm still trying to learn how to do databases because there's this one part that I really don't understand. Well, sometimes my dad is there and he helps me calm down and he breaks it down into simple chunks.
Okay.
Thank you.